Hi guys, we're looking through this article, the converse, inverse, and contrapositive of an if-then statement. So usually we'll use if-then as these letters P and Q. So usually if is P, Q is then. It's kind of weird. It is going to make sense in just a little bit. So I want to point out too that what we're starting with is called a conditional statement. That's just if P then Q. Actually, let me write this down so we can see this. So let me type it out. So just a reminder. So conditional. Hold on here. Conditional statement is saying if P then Q. If P then Q. So this is like our OG conditional statement, and we're going to kind of add to these little like notes as we read through this article. Okay, so conditional is starting with P then Q. Converse is now if Q then P. So notice the order. Did anything change? What happened there? Let's write out and let's compare here. So converse statement is now saying, like it said in here, if Q, then P. So just making observations, right, of what's going on here, what was happening. We started with P, then Q. That was our conditional, our OG statement. Now it looks like it's flipping. Can you guys see that? It was PQ, now it's QP. They're just going to flip. So when they're asking for a converse statement, it's just going to flip. So let's see this example here. So conditional, right? Conditional just means our original statement. If you eat an apple every day, then you are healthy. So in this article, they already broke it up for you where they're telling you if you eat an apple, right? If P, so eat apple every day. If you eat an apple every day, so that's P. Then you are healthy. So you are healthy is Q. So there's I forgot to say this in the beginning too, but P is like our hypothesis. We're thinking, oh, if we do this, then our conclusion. This is the conclusion. So the converse, it's going to just flip. So it's going to be you are healthy if you eat an apple every day. There it is. You are healthy. If you're healthy, then you eat an apple every day. But notice that sometimes this might not be true, right? You could be not exercising, right? Not like brushing your teeth. Right? There's other ways that you could, behaviors that you could have that would be unhealthy, but you could also be eating an apple every day, right? So this, sometimes they're not always true statements. All right, just want to point that out. So if something is being negated, we do this fancy little swirl here. I don't know what else to call it. It looks like a dash, like a cursive dash. And this just means not. So we're going to add that to update for our notes off to the side. So something is negation, negation. So for example, if we have, I don't even know where that squiggle is. So I'm going to see if I can copy it. I do not know how to get that on here. Let's find out. If not, I'll draw it out. Yeah, no. So squiggle, squiggle, it's there. P, that means not P. Or squiggle, 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 Q, that means it's not Q. And I'll add that squiggle in for updating our notes. So negation, squiggle, squiggle, just meaning not. So if they give you in this bottom one here, right, they're telling you P, our hypothesis is it will rain. Whoa. So yeah, negated P, it will not rain. It's just the opposite. I passed the exam, negated. Could be there are two possible answers, right? Or you did not pass the exam, something like that. So negated, here it is. Yeah, I did not pass the exam, or you failed. Could be the opposite. Actually, let me write that in. So negation just means opposite. It's the opposite. When you see something's negated, just means the opposite. All right, we're gonna keep rolling. They give some other examples. All right, so now inverse is if not P, then not Q. We're gonna add that up here. So inverse statement is if, I need to find a squiggle here. I'm gonna do this apostrophe. Let's imagine, if you will, it's a squiggle. If not P, then not Q. Notice the order is still the same as the conditional statement. Order stays the same, but now we're just saying they're both going to be opposite. So for the if you eat an apple every day, then you are healthy, right? The hypothesis is what you start with. You eat an apple every day. So we know it's going to become the opposite. So if you don't eat an apple every day, then opposite of Q, you are not healthy. It's pretty funny. Pretty silly statement. So yeah, if you do not eat an apple every day, then you are not healthy. Here it is. So the inverse is the order stays the same as the conditional statement, but then both are going to be negated. Both are negated. And then our last example is called a contrapositive. So there are, I know in our notes here, we've got negation off to the side. Negation is kind of like a side note one. Let me add that little squiggle too, little dash. It went missing somehow. But there are 4. So there's conditional statement, converse, inverse, and then contrapositive. Contrapositive statement. Contrapositive statement is the same order as converse, but negated. So now if not Q, then not P. So notice how it's the same order as the converse, except now it's just negated. All right, so let's look at their example. So we're sticking with this apple story apparently. So if you eat an apple every day, then you are healthy, but it might be helpful to remember the converse, right? We're just going to flip it. If you are healthy, what do they do? I'm going to leave it there. So if you are healthy, then you eat an apple every day. That was our converse statement. So the contrapositive is negated. So again, it's kind of, this one's like, it's a little weird. There's a lot going on. So we're going to start with the conclusion and negate it. So if you are not healthy, then hypothesis, that's negated. If you are not healthy, then you don't eat an apple every day. Let's check. If you are not healthy, then you do not eat an apple every day. All right. So we're going to go through some practice problems. I'll help you guys out with some of these. So given this conditional statement, if today is Monday, then I'm going to school. We want to find the contrapositive. So whenever we're doing this, I know it's like tedious. You guys do not like taking notes and annotating, but this can be, I know it seems kind of straightforward, but it can be a little tricky. So we want to just go nice and slow. We're going to label our P and Q. So again, P is the hypotenuse, and I'll actually add that in here for conditional statement, just to remind us. So P is our hypotenuse, and Q is our conclusion. And we're going to start by labeling. So if today is Monday, that's P, our hypothesis, then I'm going to school. That's going to be Q. So if, then, and we want the converse, so we're checking our notes off to the side. We're like, oh yeah, converse. That's when the order flips. So now it's going to need to be, if I'm going to school, then today is Monday. If I'm going to school, then today is Monday. Going to school, right? Because now it's if Q, then P. And we can check our answer there. Maybe not. Yep, if I'm going to school, then today is Monday. Perfect. Okay, give me a moment here to erase. Give me a moment. Okay. So next one, now the inverse of the statement. So we're going to do all of them for this. So the inverse, the order stays the same as the conditional, but now it's just not. So we need to go back to the conditional statement. If today is Monday, then I'm going to school. So if we want the inverse, this is the opposite. So if today is opposite, if today is not Monday, then I'm not going to school. So if today is not Monday, then I am not going to school. Perfect. And notice, right, some of these might not be true statements because if I'm going to school, then today is Monday. So that means you only go to school on Mondays, right? What? Or if today is not Monday, then I'm not going to school. Wait, again, so you're saying you won't go to school unless it's on a Monday? So just be aware that'll be another video for truth statements, truth tables, but just be aware sometimes they're kind of funky and they don't make sense. It'd be false statements. So now the contrapositive, this is the same order as the converse. So we might want to go back to converse statement. If I'm going to school, then today's Monday. And it's just going to be that same order. If Q, then P. But now we're going to negate it. So if I'm not going to school, then today is not Monday. If I am not going to school, then today is not Monday. Then we can check. Hooray, we did it. All right, so use this video to help you. You can conclude with practice set number 2 in this article. But I hope this helped. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know.